Hello, my lovelies! Ginny O here, the author with no last name. And this is Ginny O Reviews, the part of the channel where I review an indie, science fiction, or fantasy book, and try to answer the question, did I like this book and why? This week, I'm reviewing Terra Harmony's The Rising, Book 1 of the Painted Maidens, a mermaid and werewolf young adult fantasy. What? There wasn't one on the cover! Don't judge me. A mermaid and werewolf young adult fantasy in celebration of MerMay. You can find Terra Harmony on Twitter at HarmonyGirlLit or on her website harmonylit.wordpress.com. Though Twitter looks to be unused since 2018 and the website since 2015. So yeah. The Rising is free. Yes, free on Amazon. It is one of those get this free and buy the next 2 books things, and well, in this case, it works. From the back of the book. 17-year-old Serena is the youngest member of a dying race. The increasing acidity of the ocean is destroying her home, slowly eating away at the once thriving underwater landscape. But since the night of Serena's birth, it is an outside force that most threatens their dwindling population. Werewolves, who once served as protectors for mermaids in the kingdom of the undying, now seek to eliminate all who dwell in the ocean. And Serena is about to find herself right in the middle of the deadly conflict. Given the title Werewolf Liaison, Serena is determined to make things right for her people. When she ventures to the dry, she meets Liam, the werewolf with hazel eyes, and her whole world gets turned upside down. As Serena discovers the real history between werewolves and mermaids, she is left wondering who her true enemies are. Let's get right into it, shall we? Did I like this book, and why? Or did teenage me like this book, and why? Teenage me and I really liked this book because it dealt with mermaid problems in a mermaid culture and avoided all the My Little Fantasy type retellings. Oh yes, and there are werewolves, and I love werewolves, so don't judge me. Humans, what the mermaids or undines called ungainlies in this book, are not involved in the plot. I'm giving it 4.5 ginger snaps. Before we go any further, I do want to warn you all, this book is written in present tense. I know some readers don't like present tense. For me, it takes about 3 or 4 chapters before I stop noticing it. It is written in an active voice, so that helps quite a bit. Personally, as a reader, I feel writing a book in present tense is like adding an extra hurdle for your readers to jump over to get into your work. Very few, if any, traditionally published works are written in present tense, and those tend to stray towards some more experimental. Present tense, I think, is something that really gained momentum in fandom circles for some reason I can't explain, and I've seen it more in indie books than traditionally published books. So if you don't mind present tense, then you may enjoy this book. Serena Moonshadow is part of the last generations of Undines, the youngest and only survivor of a terrible massacre. As such, the trauma of the event has been associated with her existence, and she's something of an outcast in the society, capital S. This has driven her to enjoy her alone time of sneaking off onto land and researching why the coral reefs that sustain the Undines are dying. Sneaking off to land, though, is called absconding and is forbidden, and she's caught, the second time smelling something like a trick. As part of her punishment, she's made the werewolf liaison for the Undines, and her actions may save their people. The werewolves used to be their protectors, so they could procreate under the full moon. Now they and the Undines are at war. The one werewolf she meets doesn't seem very intent on killing her, though. I really enjoyed reading the descriptions of the mermaids, their powers, and their way of life. The world building was set up in such a way that as you learned it, block by block, it made sense. And if you're asking, Ginny, what do werewolves have to do with mermaids? I can't tell you because that spoils the plot. Serena sucked me into the story. Hey, mermaid puns are totally necessary. I liked the way she thought of the bigger picture and stayed true to herself despite outward pressures. I kept turning pages because I wanted to learn what she was learning next. I couldn't predict every plot point, though I got some things correct. And as I think back over the story, the clues provided ended up making sense in the end. The horror of it all doesn't really hit you, though, until you're staring into the fridge later. Or maybe that's just me. The stakes don't get personal for Serena until later in the book. The early stakes are more along the lines that Serena doesn't expressly want the werewolf liaison position, isn't sure what the king's goals are, war or peace, and is conflicted over whether or not she wants to do a good job. Being able to stay alive long enough to figure this out is rather important. Once the stakes turned personal for Serena, the tension of the book amps up rapidly and kept me going to the end. There is a mild romance subplot that doesn't overtake the main story, and any tension is resolved, like adults, with 5 minutes of conversation, something I find refreshing. I've never been a fan of manufactured drama that could be resolved by communicating, though there is a bit of a red herring with the supposed best friend who acts more like a brother than a friend, really. My favorite part of the romance subplot is there is an entire bit about Serena seeing the male Undyne's ankles. I was thrown back into a Regency-style story plot where, oh no, I have seen your ankles, now I must marry you, and I am totally here for it. You check out his sexy ankles, Serena. The ending left me satisfied in the fact throughout the book I could point to different plot hooks for the future book. Also, because while it felt like a great battle had been fought, the war wasn't done. Both sides were on the brink of killing each other completely or having to work together. That's a good enough place to leave a book, especially since our main character started at a spot of total ignorance and she'd fulfilled the stakes of the first few chapters, the right to use the beaches again. I think the book needed one more edit for polish and to make that horror feel a tad more visceral. Part of it might have been the present tense. It just needed a little more to really make it a stellar book. When a book is this close to 5 ginger snaps, sometimes it can be really hard to pin down exactly why it's not hitting it. I know some author feels that present tense really puts you in the moment, with the character. And for me, the opposite is often the case. As well, in present tense, when you're reading, you can miss out on places where you need those intense physical descriptions. One more edit polish for that type of thing would have made this book 5 ginger snaps. I do hope at some point to be able to pick up the next 2 books in the trilogy to find out how it ends. So, if you love mermaids, sexy ankles, werewolves, and don't want present tense, then you might enjoy The Rising, available for free on Amazon. Enjoy watching me talk about books? Or find this review informative? Then please hit that like or subscribe button. And if there's a book you'd like me to review, leave me a comment with a buy link or go to my website, ginny0.wordpress.com. That's Ginny, the number 0.wordpress.com, and get in contact with me there. Speaking of my website, that's where you can find me and all the information about my character-driven, found family, werewolf, science fiction, and fantasy books. You can also find me on Twitter at Ginny0. My books are available on Amazon and are enrolled in Kindle Unlimited. I have decided for the month of May to hopefully review 4 mermaid or mermaid-adjacent books to celebrate MerMay. Because for some reason to find mermaid books on Amazon, I had to search for sirens. Let's not get into it because my Greek myth-loving heart is whimpering. See you in the next video, my lovelies.